What's up, world? Welcome back to Authentically Us, the podcast where we talk about what it means to be authentic in everything that you do, in every space that you occupy. Hey, I'm one of the hosts here. I'm ConRoy Smith, and we got another host on the podcast today. Who do we got here with us?
Y'all know who it is. Tony Morton. What's going on, y'all?
Guys, today we got another great episode, but before we jump in, first of all, give us a rating, give us a review, jump onto our link tree. You can support us there. Also, we have merch, and we're trying to get our Instagram to 1,000 followers. So, follow us. Simple as that.
Follow it, share. Come on, y'all. Let's get there.
We have some great content. We have some great guests. But let's jump into our conversation today. Tony, what are we doing? Are we doing a real talk?
Of course we're doing a real talk. It's just you and me. You know how it go. But today we're talking about the holiday for foodies. Thanksgiving. I'm already hungry.
Right. Anytime I just think of it. Right.
So talk to me about when you hear Thanksgiving, what do you think of?
I think of family. I think of spending time with family. I think of my grandma's house is the house that everybody comes to. So,
of course.
Right. Everybody comes to our house and we just eat all day, get to hang out with family. Friends come. I think that's kind of the first thing I think about when I think of Thanksgiving. I feel like now it looks a lot different because I've spent most of my Thanksgiving out here in California. Now, I don't have any immediate family out here, so Thanksgiving here has felt really weird over the years, mainly because it's 90 degrees out on Thanksgiving, and we're trying to wear flannel, and it's just, I'm sweating. So Thanksgiving never feels like Thanksgiving when I'm out here. So it's like a very interesting concept. But Tony, when you think about Thanksgiving, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
So I think that the first thing that comes to mind to me is family, but also like we said on our very first podcast, we're going back in the archives. It is one of those holidays where we actually get along as a family. And so it's good to be around them, but then we realize, yeah, this isn't how it always is. So
that's an interesting concept because it's so true. It's a great time to get around each other, right? Because we don't have that time all the time throughout the year. But it's also like bittersweet because you're like, this is a fairy tale. Like the only time we're gonna be able to not fight and bicker is like right now at the dinner table because we're eating, and then afterwards because we're all slumped. So it is, it is like one of the times where we're only getting together for that moment. That's interesting. You brought that up. That is a throwback, Tony.
Throwback.
That's like what, episode 1 or 2 or something like that?
Very first episode, Family Dynamics.
Jeez. You know what? When I think about family dynamics, does your family have any Thanksgiving traditions that y'all hold on to that every year you know, hey, this is what my family does?
So my family doesn't. My family in general isn't really big on traditions. But Laura's family, my wife, every Thanksgiving when we get together with her family, we make gingerbread houses after dinner.
A tradition that we do is we have to set up the Christmas lights, which I hate. It's like as soon as you wake up from that Thanksgiving nap, my grandma's like, "All right, time to put the Christmas lights up." I'm like, gosh.
At least give it to the weekend, like.
I know, but it's when we're all there and she has the most help. It's low-key kind of genius.
Yeah, you're right.
Would you say the meaning of Thanksgiving, has that changed or evolved for you over time?
Yeah, I think for me it has changed over time because it used to always be, I'm thankful that this is a holiday that my family gets together on. I know I see my grandma, my mom, my aunts, my cousins, like, and now it's like we might get together, we might not, and so it's like, I'm still thankful for hanging out with my in-laws. It's always a highlight of my year, but not necessarily with my family. What about you? What does Thanksgiving mean to you now that you are mostly in San Diego?
It's a time just to get together with friends, and a time to uh, slow down, pause. It's actually a busy time at the gym because everybody wants to get their workout in before they go eat. So it's always like a busy day at the gym. Uh, and then I'm also torn because I think of the history of Thanksgiving. Like I guess now I think of it more as traditions. Like, hey, we get together, we have food, maybe go shopping. But then when you think about the history of it, like when you go way back to like what Thanksgiving really means, and now I know a lot of Native American friends here in California, it's like it's kind of gruesome. It is like a genocide when you think of like the history of how this country came to be.
What you mean history?
I mean, the history that we learned, I guess, like, with the pilgrims and the Indians, and I don't know. I feel like the more I live life and meet people, the more I realize what we learned in high school wasn't accurate. And
That
Thanksgiving is one of those things.
yeah.
How do you feel about like navigating cultural sensitivities about Thanksgiving?
Um so I don't really think about like the cultural implications of Thanksgiving. Um and I probably should more, but I just think about a time to get together with family and eat food.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us more about what is the history behind Thanksgiving.
Well, I'm not a history buff, but my thought process behind it is essentially the foundings and uh origins of America, right? The Europeans came over, founded America, quote unquote, founded America. Also, fun fact: Christopher Columbus. They talk about how he founded America, but the Dominicans also think he. Well, they talk. There's like this. There's this fight between like Americas and Spain and Dominicans of where Christopher Columbus's uh, remains are. So when I went to the DR, they talked about his remains are there. Some people will say they're here. Some people will say they're in Europe. Anyways, I would say the history of what I know of the history of Thanksgiving is the Pilgrims came over. They met with the Indians and they had this peaceful powwow. And that's why we celebrate Thanksgiving, because it was like, hey, we're gonna settle here with you. And that's like the Snoopy and uh the cartoons we used to watch. But what I've really learned, it was like a genocide. It was like they just kind of wiped out Indians, and I think that's why we what's the word? We give them reparations from, I guess, the early beginnings of the origins of America.
Right. So it's not all romanticized like we learned in like the cartoon portray. Um, why is it so significant to know the actual history?
I think it's significant to know the history because, like I said, the more and more I get older, the more and more I meet people, the more I realize what we learned in school was a snippet or what a snapshot of what maybe America wanted us to learn, or whoever wrote the history books wanted us to learn. But like I meet a bunch of Indians here in California, and they talk about their origin, their history, and I feel like it's just important to know, to serve reverence, to honor the Indians who may have lost people because of, you know, America's origins. And I think it's good just to know the history, not to be naive to like people who actually are offended by Thanksgiving. Because I've also met people who are offended by Thanksgiving, and I'm not. Like you said, I think it more as a tradition. I think it's more of a time to get together. It's more of a time to meet people, to love on family. But there are people who like it's like a trigger. It's like a trigger word for them when they hear the word Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I almost kind of feel like Thanksgiving for Native Americans is almost like what July 4th is to us. In a sense, cause like here you have this holiday that is so romanticized and kind of, oh, we're celebrating freedom and independence. Meanwhile, our ancestors did not have freedom and independence until almost 100 years later of the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Mm-hmm. That's a good parallel because it is very similar. I think I think people of color just have a bond here in America that maybe other places don't. It's like as soon as I see another person of color, whether they are Indian, whether they are uh Latinx, black, whatever, it's like we immediately have this bond because it's like if you grew up here in America, went to high school, went to schools here, it's like I kind of know what you went through.
Right.
Because of your color of your skin, and it's a it's a it's a beautiful thing because it's something that only we can understand, but it's also like kind of sad that like it is the way it is, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think back to the book we read, Between the World and Me, and Tanahashi talks about being in Howard and being at the Mecca and loving being around people of color, namely black people, and being at home. So yeah, like we get that struggle in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what? I also get nervous at Thanksgiving time because it is a time when some people who don't have healthy homes have to go back to those situations. Um, or even like it's also a lonely time for people who, especially out here in California, where I'm living in San Diego, a lot of people aren't from their areas. So it is a very lonely time unless you have friends or extended family. Has there ever been a time in your life where you were dreading Thanksgiving?
I wouldn't say for me I've ever dreaded Thanksgiving. Um, but if I had to really think through when I was younger, there was a period when my mom and my aunt didn't speak to each other in those Thanksgivings. I dreaded because I knew my aunt wouldn't be there, and I was close to her and my cousins, and so it felt different without them there. But not necessarily dreading. What about you? Do you find yourself dreading Thanksgiving?
There was a similar time in my life where it was like my sisters and my mom. I might have been around Christmas time, but it was like we all got together at my grandma's house, and then like my grandma and my mom don't get along, so it was a interesting time for us to be together. And it's almost like every time we have a Thanksgiving or a family get together or a holiday, I have to be the peacemaker. And it gets exhausting because you get these strong female emotions and feelings, and these are hurt feelings from years, like years ago. And I'm like, can we just keep the peace today for this moment? So there was times where I've dreaded that, but also loved just having everybody there. I think now it's not something I dread, but it's not also something I look forward to like I did any before. Just because it's so hot. It's so hot, and then people make food differently out here. So
I believe it.
it don't hit the same.
Well, and like that, I would not like to be at Thanksgiving with it being hot outside. No. Man, like I want to be at Thanksgiving in a flannel with some hot apple cider, chilling. I don't want to do that in the heat.
Yeah.
So that SoCal weather isn't always great, I guess.
Not for holidays. Christmas time, it actually kind of is low key fire. But Thanksgiving, it's like you want it to be like cozy, right? Like you want to see flannels, but it's like I'm hot. Like why am I wearing a flannel? But let's talk about food, Tony. Let's talk about
About time.
Thanksgiving food. What is your favorite Thanksgiving dish, meal, side, and what is your least favorite?
So when I was young, I thought my grandma made this homemade cranberry sauce. And I thought this for years, probably until I was 15 or 16. So every year, that was my go to food. And then throughout the year, my mom would try to make cranberry sauce for me. And I was like, it yours is not as good as my grandmother's. But then my 16th birthday, they were like, hey, we use the same exact cranberry sauce from a can. It's not actually homemade. And I was like, what? What? Like, nah. So that's my favorite food, even though it's not homemade. Cranberry sauce.
What's your least favorite?
My least favorite food would have to be pickled eggs. Every year, my family makes pickled eggs and deviled eggs, and I'm not about it
You're not about either pickled or deviled eggs.
either.
Wow. That's wild. I would say for me, it would have to be mac and cheese is the best, but not every mac and cheese is created equal.
Oh
But
yeah, we know that.
baked mac and cheese I like a lot, and I've had some really good ones these past couple years. My grandma makes some good ones too. Um, I would say my least favorite is dry turkey, and I always thought turkey was supposed to be dry, but once I moved to California, I realized that people deep fry it, they smoke it, and it's juicy. And I was like, I never knew. So now I can't have dry turkey ever again.
Yeah, right. I yeah, turkey's not supposed to be dry. So that's your
Never
first
knew.
problem.
I'll never have it again. Well, guys, this has been a amazing episode. We've had some technical difficulties on our side, but
Yes,
we're gonna make this work for you guys and give you guys some quality material. Hey, first of all, thank you guys for rocking with us this long. Thanks for going on this journey with us. Thanks for having these conversations with us and listening to our conversations. Shout out to MSW Media for having us on their platform. And until next time, y'all, be authentic in everything that you do. Peace.
Peace out.